Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. If you want to be the coolest person on the block, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And our first story of the day is by ALC6379. If you don't like it, you can quit. In high school during the late 90s, I was a server at a pizza chain with a red roof. At the time, this place had dine-in service. We had a GM, Ray. Ray was a nice guy, but he was better on the business and financial side of the restaurant than managing employees. People generally got their work done, but in retrospect, everybody that worked under him was young, and we probably didn't give him the respect he was due. Eventually, Barb showed up. She was an assistant manager from a nearby store that closed. Barb wasn't like Ray. It was like she was hired to come in and crack a whip over all of us. Never a please or thank you for anything. Forget if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. If you have time to lean, you have time to clean out the walk-in fridge and rinse it from floor to ceiling. On Fridays and Saturdays, the restaurant didn't close until 1 a.m. These were generally the busiest nights. However, I was 16 or 17 at the time, and I walked to and from work. My parents said that under no circumstances did they want me working past 11 p.m. They didn't want me walking home after 1 a.m. and risking being hit by a drunk driver or some other idiot out at those hours. I had already been attacked by a homeless person one Friday night that year. This limitation was written into my file by Ray. We had several other teen servers with similar scheduling limitations, but it was usually okay. Things started dying down at 11, and the adult servers were happy to take all the late tips themselves. One Friday, it's 9:45, and we're still swamped. Mean old Barb is managing. My tables are mostly wrapping up, so I informed Barb I need to come off the floor if she expected me to do any side work that night. She says to me that I need to keep serving and do my side work, and I can't leave until the side work is finished. I remind her that I must be out the door at 11 p.m. If I'm not, there's a high likelihood that my parents will make me quit this job, especially after being attacked by that homeless person. It's just too busy. If I take more tables, there's no way I can do side work. Plus, I'd just have to hand off those tables to the adult servers anyways, so there's really no point in me taking more tables. Barb blows up at me. She starts screaming loud enough for customers to hear about how kids these days are all a bunch of babies, how she hates that helicopter parents won't let their kids do real work anymore. After that tirade, she says, "You have work that needs to be done. You need to stay and do it. I don't give a darn what time it is. If you don't like it, you can quit." For some reason, her saying that felt like a smack to the forehead. I don't like this job. There's plenty of other minimum wage jobs I could be doing that would work with my schedule limitations. I'm a teen just doing this job for scratch money. Screw her. I reach into my server apron and move all my tips into my pants pocket. I untie the apron and place it on the front counter, and her eyes get huge, and all I remember coming from her was the screech of, "What? What are you doing?" I tell her I'm doing what she said. I don't like it, so I'm quitting. Cue more screeching. She's so loud the entire restaurant can hear her. At this point, I just turn around and walk out, letting the door of the restaurant close and muffle her screeching. I make it home before 11 p.m. Ray calls me the next day to get my side of the story. I explain everything. He says he understands, and he backs me up that she shouldn't have tried to make me stay. He asks if I could at least come in and work the Saturday dinner rush, but I told him that I wouldn't set foot in the restaurant if Barb was there. He said that Barb was managing that night, so I chuckled and said, "Well, that's your problem." A week later, I get another phone call from Ray. Over the course of that week, Barb yelled at 2 other teen employees of the restaurant for similar reasons, causing one to quit. She apparently also nearly got into a fight with an adult server because she called that server a druggy witch and said she was going to slap the taste out of her mouth. Barb specifically called her that because she knew the server was in recovery for opioid addiction. The final nail in Barb's coffin? 2 customers called to complain that their carry-out pizzas appeared to have cigarette ashes on them. Managers usually worked the register at this store, which meant they also cut and boxed to-go orders. Apparently, on less busy nights, Barb would smoke while being behind the counter. She was caught on video multiple times in one day with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth as she cut pizzas. Suffice it to say, Barb got fired. Ray was calling everyone back that quit to see if they wanted to come back. Me? I declined. I already found a gravy gig working at an antique mall. I didn't make tips, but I made a better hourly rate, so the money was more consistent. Our next story is by Zanfar, 6 feet out or 6 feet up. I was reminiscing with my family about my late grandfather and some of the tomfoolery he got up to. I thought this story made a perfect post for the sub. Backstory: decades ago, my grandparents purchased a large plot of land out in the middle of nowhere with the idea to build themselves a home and retire on that plot. They were from the rural Midwest, so they originally wanted to keep horses, chickens, and maybe a few other small farm animals on this land, hence the size. As the years went by and they started actually making plans, they realized that horses weren't really feasible for a variety of reasons. By that time, the area around their plot of land had been significantly more developed, so they instead split the plot into 8 pieces and sold the other 7, essentially financing their original purchase and the construction of the house, leaving their retirement and pension untouched. Because of their incredibly advantageous position, they made a point to only sell to like-minded buyers, friendly retirees who were looking for their last home and wanted a bit of the same rural isolation that my grandparents wanted. The result is that my grandparents ended up with their dream bungalow on a spacious lot surrounded by friendly neighbors, and without any major time or money obligations. They ended up spending a lot of time volunteering and generally making friends with the community that was growing around them. The area ended up becoming incorporated, and the town they were now living in eventually decided that the 2-lane blacktop road needed to be repaved and upgraded with sidewalks, gutters, and all the other amenities townspeople expect. Now, the county that the town was incorporated from had planned ahead, and there was plenty of room set aside for exactly this type of project, so none of the residents needed to move their fences or give up property to the state. However, most of them had placed their mailboxes on a post about a half-dozen feet from their property line, nearer to the road so that the postman had easy access. When the construction started, a city representative visited each property on the street and gave them a heads up on what to expect, and also asked that the residents move their mailboxes to make room for construction. My grandfather, being of light schedule and helpful demeanor, offered to help his neighbors temporarily relocate their mailbox and post. He had retired from a career as a handyman, and several of his children owned landscaping or similar businesses, so he and my uncle spent a few hours with a mini backhoe and unearthed all 8 of his neighbors' mailbox posts, cement and all. He saved the post to reinstall when the road was complete and mounted the mailbox proper on each property's fence. The issue? Lo and behold, on Monday, they had no mail service. After a bit of investigation, they realized none of their neighbors did either. So the next morning, my grandfather waited outside to see what the problem was. Right on time, the mailman drove down their side of the street, completely ignoring all 8 properties. Redoubling his efforts, the next morning, my grandfather was able to flag the mailman down and ask what the problem was. According to my grandfather, the very curt response was, "I'm not required to deliver to any mailbox more than 36 inches from the edge of the road." A call to the Postal Service confirmed this rule. The mailman may deliver outside that limit if they want, but they're not required to. The compliance. Now, it's pretty amazing what you can get done with 8 business hours of free time. The problem was that 36 inches from the current edge of the road is in the way of construction. My grandfather spoke to the construction supervisor, who was sympathetic, but just as stuck as my grandfather was. My grandfather then visited the postal office and returned with a current copy of the regulations about mailbox locations. After a few hours of study and another visit to the construction supervisor's office with a half-dozen donuts and some coffee, he had formulated a plan. Remember his sons who ran landscaping businesses? My grandfather got in his truck and visited both businesses. He returned home with 8 20-gallon plant pots. These things are huge, 30 inches tall and just about as large around. You see, while the construction guys couldn't mess with a federally protected fixed mailbox, they were happy to move a pot out of the way in the morning and back when the job was finished for the day. My grandma makes some pretty darn good donuts, which is a pretty easy task when you have earth-moving equipment nearby. So each post was replanted in a 20-gallon pot, and each mailbox was remounted on a post, and each pot was placed conservatively within 36 inches of the current road's edge. The kicker was that a mailbox post that is meant to stick 4 feet out of the ground has at least 2 feet buried in the ground. In other words, it's a 6-foot post. When you put that inside a pot with a few inches of soil underneath and that pot on the surface of the ground, a mailbox on top is easily more than 6 feet in the air. You see, the mailbox codes clearly specify how far horizontally a mailbox needs to be from the road, but it says nothing about how high that mailbox needs to be. It took a few more conversations with the postman and a visit from the local inspector, but the mailman spent the better part of 6 months delivering to 8 mailboxes 6 feet high in the air, rather than walk the extra 6 feet to the fence. I mean, all you really had to say about this story was that you had a handyman who was getting in a bit of a pickle. I think we all know that a good handyman will always engineer their way out of something. This next story is by Dark909911, Mom's Little Prank on Dad. I've had some people following my stories about my mom and dad. Some said the pranks pulled were bad and my parents had a terrible relationship. In the 45 or 46 years I saw them together, I've never seen my father or mother raise a hand or voice to one another. At the end, when my father was dying of dementia, my mom sold off everything except what was going to family and moved into the manor where my father was for the last 2 years of his life so she could be close to him. Not all their pranks were bad. Here's one I hope you enjoy. As I've said before about my father, he's a welder. He worked for a union, and at times they would hire him to go to another country and teach welding techniques. He would usually be gone anywhere from 3 months to 6 months. He would always get a big sign-up bonus before going, and this was for Mom to take care of the household things while he was gone. He was supposed to be gone for around 4 months this trip and got a massive bonus. I don't know the exact number, but we lived off of it for the next 6 months, and there was still some left that went into their savings. Mom told Dad she wanted new furniture for the living room, and he told her to redo the whole room the way she wants. Over the next 2 months or so, Mom added everything she wanted to the living room, and it looked fantastic. But with some of the money, she bought some second-hand, but still looks brand new furniture as well. It was the ugliest floral pattern and the color was baby poo green. All of it still had the plastic seat covers that had turned yellowish over the years of just sitting. She got the sofa, love seat, and recliner. It was rather cheap or she might not have done this. Mom's malicious compliance, Dad called from the airport to get someone to pick him up. From our house to the airport was a bit over an hour to get there. So Mom left to go get him, and while she was gone, it was my sister's husband and my job to switch out the nice furniture with the ugly set. We had all the furniture in a room just down the hall. After a couple of hours, Dad walked into the house. The door we used as the main door opened into a small foyer and then right into the living room. He stepped around the corner and saw the living room set. Brand new lamps on brand new end tables with a matching coffee table, a new TV, VCR, some new plants and some wall hangings. He then turned to Mom and asked how much it all cost. She fibbed a bit and added $500 more to the actual price. He didn't say a single word more than, "I'm going to unpack and shower," sounding totally defeated. While he was in the shower, my sister's husband and I switched the furniture back to the ones Mom had originally bought. After his shower and getting dressed, he walked by the living room without looking in and sat at his chair in the kitchen table. Mom came out and asked why he wasn't trying out the new living room set. Again, he had this defeated look on his face, but agreed just to please her. The look on his face when he saw the real new set, he loved it, especially the recliner. He sat in every spot on every piece and told Mom she did perfect picking things out. Within half an hour, he was sleeping on his brand new comfy recliner. The ugly furniture, Mom donated to her church yard sale. Some person with zero taste bought it for the same as Mom paid, $75 for all of it. Sounds to me like that furniture was a relic from the 70s when it was already considered tacky. I think we can all easily conjure up this picture of a couch with a bunch of floral busy pattern, baby poo green. It would be very tough to design a room where that works. I'm not sure if it's possible. And our final story of the day is by Mick Diddy. Need to see my tourist card to get on the plane? Okay. So I used to travel regularly to run marathons. One year, I traveled to Mexico to run the Los Cabos half marathon. On the way into Mexico, every tourist needs to fill out a tourist card. Basically your name and flight and hotel information. There's no photo on it, so there's no way to match it up to anybody. For whatever reason, the rule is that you need to give the card back to airline employees when you board the plane out of Mexico. I've never seen the rule enforced. On my way back, I accidentally packed the card in my check-in luggage. So we're boarding the plane home, United States, and the person taking tickets at the gate asks to see my tourist card. Conversation goes like this. He says, "Where's your tourist card?" I say, I accidentally packed it, my bad, here's my boarding pass. He says, I need your boarding pass and tourist card. I say, it's in my luggage on the plane. I'll fill out a new one with the same information. He says, I need the same card you filled out when you entered Mexico. Me figuring out at this point that the guy saw an opportunity for a bribe, which I was not going to pay. Well, I can't get it, can I? It's in my bag on the plane. He says, fine. Well, unless you show me that tourist card, you can't board the plane. Next. Cue malicious compliance. I think everyone knows what's coming. I say, excuse me, if I can't board the plane, you need to give me my luggage back. He says, fine. Calls someone to unload the luggage, takes a while everyone waits, and I pick out my luggage. I open the luggage and say, here's my tourist card, here's my boarding pass. The guy gave a shocked Pikachu face, and I got on the plane and went home. It's kind of funny to think that if OP requested they bring the luggage back, they would almost never agree to do that just to get them the tourist card back. But because the assumption was they weren't going on the flight anymore, they were happy to call it in and bring it back, falling right into the lap of OP's plans. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.